Horn, Thunder beat writer. And guys, we're going to start today with a little bit of breaking news. Cameron
No
Payne.
pun intended.
No pun intended. Cameron Payne unfortunately broke his foot. Eric, you broke this news earlier today right here on newsok.com. What can you tell us about the injury?
Well, it's to the same foot that he had surgery on this summer, but it's a different injury. The first surgery was for a Jones fracture, which we are all very familiar with now because of one Mr. Kevin Durant, which is a stress fracture injury. This injury, however, is an acute fracture, which, from my understanding, is an impact fracture. Payne hit his foot during the scrimmage at the blue and white scrimmage on Tuesday, and this is a different type of fracture to the same bone of the foot that he initially had a fracture in.
And what are we to make of this latest injury, Eric? I mean, it seems like a big coincidence that it happens in the same foot, the same area that he had the fracture.
Well, if there was another stress fracture, I think that we could make more of it. But this more so to me seems like a freak thing. If it's an impact thing, it could be the equivalent of you walking in the dark and hitting your toe on something in your house and breaking your foot or your toe. So to me, the biggest thing we can make of it is it's really unfortunate for the Thunder. And I guess we're going to get to what we're going to talk about soon is how they're going to compensate for it and who are the guys going to be that take those minutes and the roles for the Thunder going forward.
Jenny Berry, what did you guys think immediately when you saw the news that Cameron Payne is going to be out yet again with another fracture in his foot?
Well, I thought something's wrong with his foot. I'm not really sure I'm buying this, that they're unrelated. I mean, the guy's got a bad foot, got a problem in his foot, and he breaks that same bone, just when they say it's unrelated. Seems like he's got some foot problems, which the good news is he's not 7 foot tall. So, big guys generally have problems with their feet. Little guys often can come back from it.
And it's unfortunate because, this was a guy that he played through the pain. He played with that Jones fracture towards the end of last season, the Thunder determining that he wasn't going to injure it anymore, and so he continued to play, wore the walking boot much of the end of the season and into the playoffs. So he was really hampered last year. And now with this second injury, again, he's not really going to be able to go through camp. He's not going to have a chance to continue to develop. And so I think it's unfortunate for him that he's missed so much time already, or full-fledged time, 100% time. He hasn't had that, and now here he is again fighting that exact same thing. So much promise when he arrived in Oklahoma City, and now, you wonder how long is Oklahoma City, how long is the Thunder going to have to wait to see what kind of player this guy could become.
And most people might not remember, but here's a guy who started his professional career with I think it was a broken thumb or some sort of hand injury. He missed Summer League as a rookie because of the hand injury, and that's why he wanted to play so much this year in Summer League because he didn't get to play last year. Eric, with that being said, what's your level of concern about his durability? Is he driving down Mitch McGary Boulevard?
It's interesting that you mentioned Mitch McGary, and Jenny brought up a good point about Payne's development being stunted. I thought Mitch McGary was a guy that was having a good preseason for the Thunder last year, and then he picked up the concussion against the Memphis Grizzlies, I believe. And he missed a week of practice, and that really set him back in terms of his development. And Billy Donovan admitted that much last year. It set McGary back. Now, Donovan said today that he kind of went in the opposite direction and said that Payne's development won't be stunted that much by being out. But you got to imagine that to get conditioning, to get this guy games, you really wanted him out there for the entirety of preseason. And if he's out for what these acute fractures are projected at, a 6 to 8 week time frame, he's not going to be back until, at the earliest, the first couple of weeks of November or mid-November. So Mitch McGary Boulevard or Avenue, whatever street we called it just now, I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but it is troubling to see these young players that the Thunder has had the past few years continually having injury issues.
Well, and it's interesting that comment from Donovan, guys, because It'd be one thing if this was the first of Cam Payne's injuries to say that this won't stunt his growth, his development, those sorts of things. If this was his first injury, I might buy that. But as you mentioned, Darnell, he has the hand-finger injury that keeps him out of summer league his first summer. Then he has the injury, so much of last season into the off season. I don't know how it can't. I mean, if he would have been full strength during that time, okay, maybe that's a different situation. But this is a guy that really has struggled to string together any long amount of playing time, practice time, development time. And here he is as that number 2 option. They really want to see him develop behind Russell Westbrook, and there just hasn't been that chance. We saw how ill-equipped he was in the playoffs. Granted, it was the playoffs, but yet still ill-equipped to be at that level. So, I think, and it's not to say he wouldn't have had struggles last year. Even if he hadn't been hurt, it's entirely possible he would have struggled in the playoffs, but to say that didn't have some impact seems a little short-sighted to me.
It also seems to me pretty clear that the Thunder knew something could go wrong or was wrong even before this latest break. We talked about why they bring in Ronnie Price. That seemed like an odd addition to the roster that was already full. You had Christian already here. Oladipo is clearly a guy that can play the point. But now we know why they needed Ronnie Price. They didn't have full confidence that Cameron Payne would be healthy.
Eric, I think the last summer league I covered, Samaje Christian went out there. He had an extremely successful summer league. Personally, I'm a fan of his. What can you tell us about Samaje Christian? Does this change anything for him? Is he now more in consideration more? Do you think he's going to be in the plan going forward?
I like Samaje Christian as a player. I think he plays under control in the scrimmage a little bit. I saw him in the scrimmage and in the summer league. He didn't really do anything out of his element. But the signing of Ronnie Price, to me, really hampered Samaje Christian's chances of making this roster. I mean, Cameron Payne's still going to be a part of this roster, and the Thunder have to get down to 15 players for the season tips on October 26th. So right now they're at 17 guaranteed/non-guaranteed contracts, and Samaje Christian is one of those partially non-guaranteed. So it would have to be an extreme situation where they would have to get a hardship in terms of them having a significant amount of injuries or sickness like they did in the 2014-15 season for Samaje Christian to get on this roster to start the season. The Ronnie Price signing really put him in a bind. And I don't know if it's going to be with the Blue this season or it's going to be overseas, but I just can't see Samaje Christian being on this roster for opening day.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Ronnie Price, Eric. I mean, I know we've only seen the blue and white scrimmage Tuesday night, maybe a little bit at the end of practices, just shooting drills. And just from talking to Coach Billy Donovan and some of the players, what more can you tell us about Ronnie Price? Is he the answer?
Well, he seems like he's a capable fit with this roster. He's a guy the past few seasons that has filled in a similar role that he's about to go into now, where he's filled in for injuries for teams like LA and Phoenix. Statistically, he's coming off his best 2 seasons of his career, albeit he didn't score a ton. But he's a guy that's going to be defense first. He's got length. He's at about 6'2", and he's tenacious on defense. And that, admittedly, was something that Cameron Payne probably would have been lacking, whether he was healthy or not, is the ability to defend other teams' point guards, be it the first team or the second team. So he's going to be a great guy in the locker room, Price is. He's got the Earl Watson seal of approval from the former Thunder guard who's now coaching the Phoenix Suns. So this is a guy that's been around the league that a lot of people hold in high regard. And I think he's going to be able to fill that role in well. Now, it could be as the backup, or it could even be alongside Victor Oladipo, Russell Westbrook in 3-guard lineups.
I had a chance, like probably everybody else on this hangout did during media day, to sort of see Ronnie Price for the first time in person in terms of an interview setting. I had a chance to talk one-on-one on camera with him, and I was really impressed by him. I mean, he sort of reminded me of, say, Anthony Morrow or Caron Butler. I think, guys like Kevin Ollie have been mentioned sort of in the same vein as him. A guy that is towards the latter years of his career. I think he's 33. He's a journeyman. He's been all over the league. He's played internationally some. Utah Valley State, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
A guy that really basketball has taken him a lot of places, but he's really, I mean, he's had to sort of give a lot to continue playing. I mean, he's really moved a ton and, sort of been willing to do that for the game. So, yeah, I don't know that he's obviously not who they would prefer to have at that spot. I mean, they would love to have a healthy campaign at that backup point guard spot. But this is a guy that, you don't stay in the league as long as he has with so many different teams if you don't bring something to the table. So I think, in the interim, I think it'll be an okay fit, and then we'll just have to see, how significant and how long-term is this injury to campaign.
Yeah. You're watching Thunder Thursday. I'm here with Barry Trammell, Jenny Carlson, our columnist, joined on the phone by Eric Horn. And we're talking about some unfortunate news that hit the Thunder only 4 days into camp, and that's Cameron Payne's fractured foot, his right foot, the same foot he had a Jones fracture surgery on. And Eric mentioned Russell Westbrook. He's a guy that I think we should talk about. How is this going to impact Russell Westbrook? Because there was an idea coming into this season that maybe you could play Cameron Payne more and move Russell Westbrook off the ball, get him some rest, in-game rest, as opposed to having to sit him. You could just play Cameron Payne a little bit more. How do you guys think this is going to impact Russell Westbrook?
I don't think it's going to impact a lot because I think they got pretty decent depth at guard in terms of Oladipo. We've been talking about Price, but Andre Robertson's started for 2 years at shooting guard. So you've got some guard depth there. I don't know that Russell Westbrook's that interested in going down to 28 minutes a game anyway. So it seems like you'd have some
I'm
friction.
not sure Billy
there.
Donovan is all that excited about that either.
Campaign. I think they'll miss Campaign. The depth, the 10 or 12 minutes a game he could provide, but I don't really think it'll impact Westbrook.
Well, to me, it seems like, again, this goes back to the development of not really knowing what you've got yet with Campaign. How could he fit in long term with this new Thunder future, with this Kevin Durant-less Thunder future? Is he a guy that could play some alongside Westbrook, late in games or for stretches during the game and, show some different things? That's just impossible to know as they're trying to construct and build and move ahead, not only this year but in the future. So to me, that's a question. But yeah, I mean, I think Russell Westbrook playing alongside other athletic guards like Campaign is when he's healthy, I think that makes him even more dangerous. So would Russell Westbrook prefer to have Campaign out there healthy? Yeah, I mean, I think so. But, I'm with Barry. I don't think you're going to see a huge minutes reduction. Now, if he goes down and Ronnie Price is suddenly, getting all sorts of minutes, well then, it's a whole different ballgame anyway.
How about it, Eric? Do you see this having any impact or bearing on Russell Westbrook and how Billy Donovan can or cannot use him now going forward?
Maybe a little. I look at it from this standpoint. I was really looking for Cameron Payne to be a guy that could create shots from the backcourt off the bench. And that's not what Ronnie Price does. Ronnie Price is more of an aggressive defender, a guy that's going to come in and guard really hard and get some steals and turn defense into offense. But Cameron Payne was a guy who could go get his own shot on offense and create. So I wonder if that's going to put more of an onus on Westbrook and Oladipo to attack in those three-guard lineups if they do use them, because Ronnie Price is going to be the one guy who's not going to bring that facet that Payne could have brought. So the second unit guard punch is what I'm going to be looking for and what I'm going to be interested in, not so much Russell Westbrook's role as a starter.
Eric, all these basketball questions are fine and well, but is this foot going to affect the pregame dancing ability of Cameron Payne? That's, I think, what everyone wants to know.
I kept asking him, well, I didn't keep asking, but I asked him in the offseason, like, are you going to keep dancing once you come back? And that was just off of the stress fracture. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. But look, man, these feet are precious. I think the Thunder might be wise to tell this guy, like, you might want to dial it back a little bit. And he might have done that regardless because he might have gotten older and matured or whatever. But Cam might need to take a step back. And I don't know if he's going to be doing it in the boot or other ways anytime soon.
I kind of wonder if somebody says, you've been doing this dancing and it's been nothing but heartache with your foot. Maybe this is some sort of Cause and effect?
Maybe the dancing is causing the injury.
It's
If that's the
stress
case, we
fracture
need to
to
get
Jones.
Russell Westbrook to stop too. 'Cause
Yeah.
We don't need any injuries to him. I believe he calls them the swag daddies, doesn't he, Eric?
Swag daddy.
I think they've lost some of the swag.
We're going down the road of turning this in. We're going down the no fun police road. We're basically going to have the Thunder sit perfectly still on the bench and not do anything before the games just to preserve health, so we can ensure that this is a fully healthy season.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate break for a second-year player with so much promise. He only got 57 games as a rookie last year. He's a lottery pick who came in here. They had a lot of optimism for how good he was going to be and how much he was going to be able to contribute to this team, especially coming into this year. But we're going to have to wait and see on the timeline and see what it takes, how long it takes for Cameron Payne to come back. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the new guys on this team. They've got 6 of them. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next few weeks learning about these guys. Eric Horn and Brett Dawson have written about them since Sunday. And my question to you guys is, who are you most impressed with so far, and who do you think could have the biggest contributions that Thunder fans could be most pleasantly surprised by?
Are we not count? Are we
Oladipo, obviously, we know is going to be a starter.
All right, that's all I wanted to know. Because Oladipo's the most interesting, he's the most experienced, he's the best player, he's ever all those things. If you throw out Victor Oladipo,
Pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think we all know that Victor Oladipo is going to be really good for this team, but who do you think is going to be the guy who's going to
biggest
surprise?
well,
the
you know
most?
what? I mean, and I thought this even before the scrimmage the other night, but I thought Sabonis had the chance. This is a guy, he's got a lot going for him. He's the 11th overall pick. 11th overall picks are supposed to contribute. Steven Adams was a 12, I think.
Yeah.
He came in as a rookie and was a very solid NBA player. So Sabonis can do that. He's not like Adams in that he just picked up a basketball at the age of 15. I mean, this guy's got the pedigree unmatched by anybody really in the league. His dad's one of the top 10 basketball players of all time, probably. So this guy was raised in basketball, lots of international experience, and he's got the college experience. I mean, he's got an incredible amount of crossover experience.
Played for a heck of a coach, and Mark Few.
Great coach, and he just got the pedigree. He clearly knows how to play. We chatted with, or Jacko chatted with him. I listened, and he was, he's a sharp guy, a solid guy. Seems like he sort of understands the way things are supposed to be. So I think he's got a chance to be a really solid contributor.
Yeah, I would say that's probably my guy that I would pick too. But just a minute on Oladipo. I know we're not considering him in your question, but I will say this, and we saw it, and we're probably going to continue to see it, but we started to see it at Media Day, and I think fans are going to catch on to this too. This guy is a treat. He's a treat to be around, and it goes without saying, people are probably going to love what he brings on the court. But off the court, I was so impressed by this guy. I mean, just really outstanding personality, fun to talk to. You can tell he really has joy for what he does. So when people start getting a chance to interact with him, in different ways around the community, whether, outreach events or fan events or just seeing him, sort of away from the game itself, I think people are really going to take to him not just as a player, but also as a personality, which I'd heard some about, but I don't think until I saw him and started to interact with him that I recognized that. But as far as on the court, I mean, I think I'm intrigued by all these guys, even a guy like King Joffrey. I'm intrigued by. I mean, here's a guy that they go out and get in the middle of the summer, and we're all kind of sitting around going, why did they get this guy from Denver? Who is he even? You try to think back. Have I seen this guy play? Do I know? Do I remember anything about him? But he just seems like a young big man that they can continue to develop. And look what they've done with big men in this organization. You see the development of guys like Steven Adams, even Enes Kanter, the way he's come around. I'm not saying that this guy's becoming an all-star this year, but it's intriguing that he's, a talented big guy. And, you just don't know, as a young big man, what are they going to do with him?
Do you know how to say his last name? Do you know how to pronounce it?
Lavergne?
Is that it, Eric? Is that it?
Lavergne. That's how I
win.
understand it. Lavergne. You're on it. You got it.
Lavergne and Shirley.
We don't have a Shirley. We need one.
We need one.
Paul Shirley, bring him back.
We can get one.
Eric, you've been around these guys more than anyone. Who do you think stands a chance or has the opportunity to be the biggest or the most pleasant surprise?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Sabonis is as much of a surprise as we anticipated him to be. I think I might have even undersold how much of an impact he's going to have. I'm trying not to get too overboard with the scrimmage results, but he looked good amongst those guys that we presume are going to be the starters. And what was been most telling to me during camp is the way that guys go out of their way to mention Sabonis. And I think I talked about this with Brett on the podcast yesterday, but I was asking Steven Adams a question about Joffrey Lavernier, and he spent about a couple of seconds on Joffrey, but then it somehow shifted to Sabonis, and it shifted to what good things this guy was doing. And Billy's gone out of his way to talk about Sabonis at times. So it's really, I guess it's surprising to me that I thought that a guy coming from Gonzaga, a 20-year-old, despite his pedigree, still wouldn't be this close to being an impactful potential starter for the Thunder at power forward. But from what we've seen so far, he's got a far better chance than I ever anticipated. The close second for me will be Ronnie Price because of Campaign's injury. I think we're going to be surprised at how good he is defensively and how well he holds his own there. But it's got to be Sabonis for me.
Eric, I'm kind of curious, just from your perspective, having seen practice and getting as much insight as you guys are getting. I know this isn't a name every newcomer segment, but Ersan Ilyasova is a guy that I'm intrigued by for several reasons. But one, he's been around a lot longer than I initially thought. He's I think this is his 9th or 10th year in the league. 10th, I think, right, Barry?
Yeah, 8 in Milwaukee and then Orlando, yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's been in the league this long, what's your sense of how he's going to fit into things at this point, Eric?
Well, again, I still think he stands a good chance of starting at power forward. He had the unfortunate task of being on that blue team in the scrimmage, so you really didn't get to see him go at it with the starters and see him maximize what he can do with Russell Westbrook and Victor Oladipo and Adams and such. But he was a guy who he drew 2 charges in a flipping scrimmage, and this is a guy who led the league in charges drawn last year. He hit a couple threes in the scrimmage. He really looked like he had good production, considering that he was playing with a team that was completely overmatched. So I wouldn't necessarily rule him out to be a starter just because Sabonis was immediately impressive and he scored a bunch of points with the starters because of what you said. He's been around for a while. He has a rapport with Adrian Griffin going back to Milwaukee and Orlando. He's been known to pick up systems quickly. He did so with Scott Skiles' system in Orlando. So I think that veteran savvy that he has could play a big role for the Thunder. And as Donovan said, like it could be an interchangeable starting lineup for the Thunder this year. You might start with Sabonis maybe in the beginning of the year, but one night you might see Ersan Ilyasova starting at power forward. One night maybe you'll see Joffrey starting at power forward or Enes Kanter. So it remains to be seen, but I think Ilyasova is definitely going to play a part.
Yeah.
Well, my guy, and I'm not saying he's probably going to surprise us the most, but Alex Abrines. I mean, that's a guy we haven't mentioned. He was a former early second-round pick in 2013. I think he was taken 31st or 32nd overall. That's a coveted spot by NBA teams who like to get highly talented, highly skilled players without that guaranteed contract. He's finally coming over this season for the first time. And, I'm curious to see what he's going to bring. Eric, you might have to settle me down a little bit because from Brett Dawson's story today, Alex Abrines said one of the factors in him coming over was Kevin Durant leaving and him all of a sudden seeing that starting 3 spot. There's a hole there and maybe he could fill it. I mean, am I thinking too much into it, looking too much into it and overthinking it that he could possibly at some point this season be the starting 3?
Yeah, I think so. I just think that that's Roberson's spot right now, particularly if Andre continues his upward track of offensive development that we saw in the playoffs, because we know that Roberson is going to bring the defense, and this team is going to need to defend for sure. And if Westbrook's going to have spotty times at defense, Roberson is going to have to be out there to check other guys' best wings, and I don't know if that leaves any space for Alex Abrines to start to begin the season.
Better defender, Eric, Alex Abrines or Anthony Morrow?
fascinating. Well, I would give the edge to Morrow, actually, because I think that Morrow does do a pretty good job of tracking back on defense, as Barry Trammell loves. But Alex is real skinny. I mean, now Morrow's not good at it once he gets to the point, but Alex is really skinny, and Alex needs to put on weight, as Brett wrote about in his story. He's only about $190, if that. So Alex is getting pushed out in the post, and it's going to be a struggle for him to really get around screens and until he gets some more muscle on him and gets adjusted to the NBA game.
I'm looking forward to seeing him. I mean, I think he's a really skilled guy. I think he's really talented. Obviously, we know he can shoot the ball, but it sounds like he can do other things, like put it on the floor, like catch and shoot. If he can get his defense there, I'm really intrigued about seeing what he can possibly bring to the table. I came into the season kind of thinking that he's just going to be this backup, sort of a 12th, 13th man. I don't know. I mean, the guy seems like he's super confident, and maybe he could be a pleasant surprise.
Well, and maybe that, on this trip back to Spain, one of the things that he told several of us during media day was that he misses the food in Spain. So maybe he'll go back, eat a few big meals, add to that, frame that Eric was talking about being a little bit undersized. Maybe he'll come back feeling good and make a little push for that. Who knows?
Well, we'll come back next Thursday feeling a little bit better. So kind of a bummer Thunder Thursday with so much bad news to talk about with Cameron Payne's foot injury. But thanks for joining us anyway. We'll do it again next week. That's all for Thunder Thursday. For the best Thunder coverage, stay with newsok.com and read us every day in the Oklahoman.